Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 27 July 2016. The first article is related to the reforms here are to stay. So this is about Rangarajan on reforms, that is 25 years of reforms. He is talking about the impact of reforms on Indian economy. In this context, the reforms in India are a response to crisis. And these reforms are different compared to the reforms that were undertaken in 1980s. Because the Rajiv Gandhi government's reforms are different and they are mostly incremental. Rao Manmohan Singh reforms, these are not incremental, but they are a bold move and it involves an overhauling of the entire system. So in this context, the credit shall be given to the leadership for this move. In this case, what are the major reforms that were undertaken? The license Raj and over-regulated industrial sector, it is weakening the growth of Indian economy. So in this case, the license Raj was dismantled. Second is, most of the industries are reserved for the public sector and they are being opened for the private sector now. That is, public sector mammoths are being dismantled. And mostly we are an inward-looking economy. So what happened is the trade, the barriers are being removed and trade is opened. It has corrected the Indian situation in a short span of time. So in this case, at that point of time, the Prime Minister himself held the industrial portfolio. And Manmohan Singh, he was shielded from all the pressures of bringing in the reforms and finally the reforms took place in the country. Now, because of the reforms, what we see today, if you see between 2005-2006 and 2010-11, the growth of the Indian economy reached 8.8%. After 1990, we never saw the balance of payments crisis again. And the poverty, it has come down drastically once the reforms have started. But on the other side, there are certain wrong things are also been happening because of this neoliberal policy. The privatization of essential services like education and health have happened, and the poverty levels are reduced. At the same time, the deprivation levels are also increasing. And many of the sectors still are suffering from the regulation by the state. Economic inequalities have deepened among the people. So in this case, let us take a cautionary note. The efficiency of the market and equity of the state, they shall be balanced with always each other. It means that if efficiency of the market is trying to replace the equity brought in or supposed to be brought in by the state, ultimately it leads to inequality. So the government has to focus on building the equity and the market has to work on efficiency and the growth, and this balance is the essence of the economy. Now the second thing is curbs on the free speech. You know that Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution, it provides for freedom of speech and expression. Article 19 subclause 2 provides for reimposition of reasonable restrictions. So in these circumstances, the relations with the foreign country are having good relations so that has been friendly relations with the foreign states or any freedom of any thing which leads to violence, etc., have to be considered as reasonable restrictions on the freedom of speech. So this year in prelims, I am expecting a question on the reasonable restrictions related to freedom of speech in Article 19 subclause 2. So how it has come into existence? Shyam Prasad Mukherjee, who was the Chen Sangh leader, and Nehru Liaquat Pact, after independence, it is about protecting the minorities in the country. So in this scenario, so the agreement also clearly states that both the governments has to prohibit a propaganda that incites the countries for war. So in this case, the Janasangh, it started talking about Akhanda Bharat. The Akhanda Bharat, it implies some parts of Afghanistan to India, Pakistan, and some parts of Afghanistan too. So in this case, and Shyam Prasad Mukherjee officially started talking about a war with Pakistan. So it is very much violative of the Nehru Liaquat Pact. So in this case, the freedom of speech has become an obstruction to control this. So already the Supreme Court has held in Ramesh Thapar Brijbhav Bhushan case, the freedom of speech and freedom of press are integral to Article 19(1)(a). So finally, the First Amendment Act has been passed And what it says is, anything that damages the friendly relations with the foreign states, disturbs the public order, and also incites an individual to commit an offense, all these things are introduced as reasonable restrictions under Article 19 subclause 2. Now coming to the democracy and its challenges in India. Now let's take the view of Amartya Sen on democracy. Amartya Sen says capabilities are critical for democracy. So what is thing is, what a person values, he has to live or he has to pursue those values. For example, I love teaching. I shall have a provision to enjoy this to the fullest extent. I shall have a chances to pursue what I like the most. So the true freedom will be a focus on all developmental effort. India's independence has a goal to build a prosperous India which is progressive and just to its people. Now, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has defined democracy as a means to bring about a significant change in the living conditions of the depressed without resulting to bloodshed. I will give you a small example. Now, in Telangana, so when Nizam was ruling, the communist movement was in its peak. Then there is a class fight which has started between the elite and the working class. The working class are mostly the Dalits. Then the Bhudan movement, Vinoba Bhave have come to Telangana and he started taking the pledge from the people that they don't clash with each other, and the elite started donating the lands to the landless. So that's what is the class struggle, how Nehru stopped using the Vinoba Bhave's the Bhudan movement. So it means the capabilities of the people have to be raised, and without bloodshed the democracy has to create a just and equal society. So in this case, the independence has clearly said the objective is to create a prosperous, progressive nation. So in this case, how the public policy has to be? It means the Dalits and minorities need attention. The resources of the state has to be spent on building their capabilities, and where and every Indian shall be able to participate on equal footing in the development of the country. Now if you take Singapore housing system, let me say this way, public spaces are there. Now we have many social inequalities in the public spaces. So we need to bring in greater interaction between the people of different identities in the public spaces rather than conservatively consolidating them. If you take the Singapore housing model, the ethnic integration and also class integration has occurred through this housing policy. It means that all the races, namely Chinese, Indian and Malay, they shall share the houses in the common premises in Singapore, which has changed or created a strong... Let's take the Singapore housing model as an example, in which in Singapore, all the Chinese, India and Malay people, they have to live together in the same housing complex. So because of this, ethnic integration has become a possibility. So India also has to create the public spaces that are filled with capabilities and also build a nation where different classes and also ethnicities integrate freely with each other. Now coming to doping cloud. Now Mr. Narsingh Yadav, world champion for bronze medal, the wrestler, he has got caught in this doping charges. Already we have seen Russian athletes, they are not being allowed to participate in Rio Olympics. In India also we have the doping challenge. So in this case, the National Anti-Doping Agency, so it has its weaknesses, and the sports units, they don't have the transparency. And the standardization of this particular work are also based on World Anti-Doping Agency standardization. We also need to develop the adequate laboratories in the country to fight this particular menace. Now coming to this Antrix Corporation, let us take the brief background about this. Now, bilateral investment promotion agreements India signed with different countries. Under this, India can be taken up to the international arbitration between the investor and state, for the investor and the state disputes. Let me take you this way. Vodafone and then Kane Energy, now it is the Devas Multimedia. Now, Devas Multimedia, it has got a contract with the commercial arm of the ISRO, that is Antrix Corporation, for the spectrum. So especially S-band spectrum. Now, for later, CAG, it has quoted some 3 lakh crores of presumptive losses for the government in this particular S-band spectrum allocation. Finally, it was cancelled, unilaterally cancelled. Devas Multimedia took it to the international arbitration, which has finally asked the government to pay $1.6 billion in damages. So that's why government is revising its bilateral investment promotion agreements with US, UK and all the countries. Now the model agreement, what it says is only after local grievance measures are being done away with, an investor has to go to the international arbitration. What the international investors, what they say is, India's justice delivery system is very lethargic or else delayed. So in these circumstances, we will be at a loss or there may be a great damage. Now coming to Iram Sharmila. She was unpassed for the 16 years and finally she left her fast. So Iram Sharmila, she wants to fight the Armed Forces Special Powers Act from through a democratic process, that is by getting herself elected to the Manipur Assembly. So in this case, Armed Forces Special Powers Act, what it says is, if a president declares certain area as a disputed or disturbed region, then the armed forces can be deployed and the armed forces get some uncontrolled authority and they can not be they are not liable for prosecution even in the cases of death. Now coming to Arundhati Ghosh. So a diplomat and UPSC member too. She has passed away recently and she was our ambassador who represented the India's case strongly against the CTPT. Now coming to the regulation of the higher education sector in India. You know that we have multiplicity of the regulatory agencies, we don't have the coordination among them. And most of these agencies are having the complaints of corruption. So in this case, the Medical Council of India is notorious. So the Medical Council of India is being replaced with the National Medical Commission. It will have 4 boards in it. One is for undergraduation, the other one is post-graduation. The next is accreditation and assessment, finally, board for the registration of medical colleges. Like that, 4 boards will be there. And the second, to improve the quality, an exit exam will be conducted. It means any student who has completed his medical course, he has to take this exit exam. Now, if you take United States, they have an exit exam called USMLE, United States Medical Licensing Exam. Similarly, India also will be conducting a similar exit exam. And third thing is, in giving permissions to the colleges, as of now, inputs are being considered. So rather than the inputs, outcomes are expected to be given a preference. It means how many teachers are there, how many benches are there, how many beds are there. This is what is the criteria today. Now tomorrow, how many students are clearing the exit exam? So that will become a criteria to give permissions to the schools and colleges. Coming to the Lokpal Act, let me give you a brief introduction over here. In the Lokpal Act, every public servant has to submit a declaration on his assets. Not only his personal assets, he also has to declare the assets of his children and also his wife. So in this context, public servants are protesting this on the reason government can take their assets. What is the government's authority to take declaration of the assets of their children and wife? And second thing is, the definition of public servant also includes any organization which is receiving grants of a particular amount from the government and which is also receiving donations from abroad which are greater than 10 lakhs of rupees. So these also comes under the definition of public servant. It means the NGOs and their higher executives, yes, they also come under the definition of the Lokpal Act. They need to declare their assets and the sources of their funds. Obviously, it is going to critically block the funds which are coming to the NGOs. These are the articles for today. Thank you very much.